Good evening, Camby. Welcome to a very special City Council meeting for April 27th, 2022. We are gathered here this evening to hold interviews for the open City Council seat that was recently vacated due to a resignation. We have 1, 2, 3, 4. Looks like 6 to 7 candidates here this evening interviewing for the position. My initial spiel is this for the candidates. One, welcome. Thank you for putting your hat in and giving this a whirl. You're, I think, applying at an interesting time when here it is, April, election's not too far away, so you can kind of dip your toe in, test the waters, determine if you like it or not, and either continue on this wonderful path of community service or jump ship and say, you guys are nuts, I'm not doing this anymore. But anyways, thank you for stepping in and being a part of this. Everyone got the questions in advance, so you know what's going to be asked of you to go through. There may be some follow-up questions based on your answers. Those will unfortunately probably be at random if there are any follow-up questions. We are going in alphabetical order this evening by last name, so there was no drawing of numbers or shortest straw or anything like that. I will say this to everybody and get out of the way. We do meet the second and fourth Wednesdays of every month. Meetings usually are at 7 o'clock. We occasionally do work sessions that can start as early, very rarely at 5 o'clock, but usually at 6, and we have occasionally gone until 1 in the morning. If any of those things concern you, or the fact that we're televised and then you immediately become a celebrity at the grocery store. So if any of those things are of a concern, now would be the time to maybe reconsider. Yeah, grocery stores, pizza places.
Celebrity,
well,
it took me 4 hours to get into.
but it is.
Yeah.
It's a good 3-hour grocery trip.
Picking up milk definitely gets to be a little bit longer. I think that's all that I have in regards to what you're getting yourselves into this evening. Council, any comments to get started?
Did we want to do a flag salute? Just
Sure.
Like that?
Yes, we can absolutely do that. Cool. Well, if you'll please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, and then we'll get going on the interviews.
I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Thank you, Councilor Parker. All right. First up this evening, Ms. Boyce, if you'd like to come up to the table. The microphone is already on. Please be sure to speak into it so those at home can hear you as well. Good evening. How are you?
I'm doing awesome.
Great.
Mute. There we go. I'm good.
Well, we'll just start off with the first easy one there. So please tell us about you and your desire of serving as a city councilor.
Well, I've actually been in this position before, amazingly enough, in 2010. And at that point in time, actually, Brian Hodson and Parker and one other had gotten, Ayers had gotten in at the time. I got in, the reason I would like to join city council is I'm not somebody who just sits back and watches change. I like to be a part of it and help direct it. And I feel that since I've been in the community long enough and I've established myself as a business owner and in certain clubs and events, that I'm ready and knowledgeable enough to step forward in that.
Great. Someone else want to, Sarah, would you like, Councilor Smith, would you take the next question? Just kind of we'll go down the dais here.
Of course. Thank you for applying, Stephanie. What do you think are the most pressing concerns in the city of Canby today, and what do you think may be some ways to address these concerns?
My thing that I'm concerned about the most is keeping the rural town feel and making sure that we have smart growth, what I consider to be smart growth. There's a excess and a quick movement of homes and developments coming in, and I'm not sure if our infrastructure can keep up with that. Infrastructure meaning the utilities, the roads, the schools and whatnot. And to fix that, you just got to practice what's called smart growth. And sometimes that's making decisions that could cost or create money. Not sure, kind of helping decide which businesses come in that speak. The businesses coming in that we accept to come into the community, be local, or those that help keep that rural feel. If you would like, I could speak on a decision I did not like recently, which was Amazon, the approval of Amazon coming in. In my opinion, it's not about money. That was I do not believe that we're going to be able to keep up maintaining back in that industrial area. And also, I believe it's going to bring in individuals into the community that are not going to have a hometown feel. That's just the one. Just one.
All right, question number 3 is, can you tell us about a situation where you may not have seen eye to eye with a coworker, colleague, or committee member, and how did you resolve that situation?
I worked for a company called Precision Cast Parts. They've been in Oregon for a long time. I'm sure everybody knows it. It's in manufacturing. There's way too many incidences where employees are not clicking with each other on how to, the direction that the instructions should go in creating a part. But I realized a long time ago when I had an incident with another associate that both the associate and I actually were not angry at each other or fighting each other. It actually had to do with the process. And if we didn't have defined, nobody had defined what our position was and what we were doing. And once that got brought to management and management was aware that they needed to actually create a process so that we knew what was defined in our position, we wouldn't have even had the problem to begin with. So the individual and I, once that was brought up, didn't have any problems anymore. And so did a lot of other people not have problems anymore.
Amazing what communication can do. Is that it? I guess I'm
Well,
up.
I mean, if you want, I don't really feel like I need to share any more. I mean, that's 7 years of
No, what-
business with other individuals,
It does say
working
a
with the public.
situation, so I
and
think you're
working.
good.
Yeah.
All right, the next question is, do you have some specific goal or improvement you would like to make in Canby as a result of serving as a city councilor?
Just like I said, helping with smart growth and keeping the small town feel, keeping it rural. If Canby has any problems, Canby's always solved their problems themselves in Canby. I do not want anyone else outside of Canby coming in and talking to us about problems that we can solve ourselves in our city.
You get the hard ones. Question number 5 is, give us an example of how you have worked or participated as part of a team or a committee.
Well, I've been a part of several committees in the city. I actually did end up on the planning commission, planning department. I also did the budget committee. Lee Parker was there for that as well, and Brian. And I believe that we worked well together. I mean, it was one task, which was on the budget. Also, I was on what's called a action team. At Fred Meyer, we have what's called an action team where you go to store to clean up messes. You know, so if a store is having some issues. So they picked out of individuals that they knew that they could trust, that they didn't have to babysit. And we would go just randomly to a store, clean house, and reorganize and get it up and running, back on track. And I didn't have any complaints there.
Do you have any questions for us? Excuse me. Do you have a problem speaking without remembering to push the button first? Do you have any questions for us?
No, I've been in the community for a while now. I'm actually pretty excited to look out back behind here, no joke, and a lot of individual faces I've known for quite a long time. There is a lot of great representation in this room that I'm excited about. So if I do not end up on the board, I'm still excited about a few others that are in here. I'm not going to put out names or anything.
That's fair.
I'm just saying, I like the view.
Okay,
All right.
great. Stephanie, thank you very much.
Thanks.
Appreciate it.
Is that Mr. Maldonado who joined us?
I believe so, yes. Mr. Maldonado, yes? No, you're here? Good, we're just making sure that everyone's here, so you're good.
Sorry about that, I'm come from job site.
No, you're totally fine. We're going in alphabetical order, so you got one more yet. All right. Mr. Clark, you're next, sir.
Good evening, everybody. I am happy to be back in person now, though. If it please the council, I've got the questions, so unless you'd like to ask them all again, I'm happy to go through them. And yeah, we'll dive in. So I am a 15-year resident here in Canby. I moved here in 2007 as part-time pastor to a church plant. And when that dissolved, happened to have another part-time job in Wilsonville at the library, which has become a full-time job over the years and is a wonderful way to get to serve the community and be a part of, be on the ground as far as city government goes. Yeah, and sorry, I wanted to try and get through that quick. I am an Oregon resident from birth, grew up in Florence on the coast. I kind of covered that last time. Pressing concerns for the city. The council deals with so many things. I don't have to tell you that. You know, the 205 tolls coming in and changing what's happening with 99, the URD, the water that is always coming up with people, the dog parks on the way. So, I mean, and a lot. So, so to try and nail down one pressing thing seems a little unnecessary because I think what you're going to hear from me and probably most everybody, because they're going after me, they're going to all steal my answers. Just kidding. Is planning, is the future. And I watched the 5-hour YouTube goal setting meeting and the subsequent 3-hour one to try and get a handle on where the city's at, where it's going, and all the things that are going to be happening in the years to come, and trying to keep a 20-year view on things or more is really the key here. I mean, you're setting building blocks for the future. And so that is going to, you know, that's really the key, and teamwork makes the dream work. And so if you've read the book Good to Great, there's a spectacular analogy in there about getting the right people on the bus and then getting them seated in the right seats. And I think that's kind of that's what you're here doing tonight with all of us. A situation where I've not seen eye to eye with a coworker. We have all encountered many of those situations where people have different perspectives and ideas. The key for me is to listen first and to learn, to stick to the problem and not make it personal. It's not about each other. It's what's the issue at hand? What is it we're trying to solve together? There is common ground. To recognize, I think one of the things that kind of gets skipped sometimes is to recognize feelings, because often we are bringing those feelings and emotions in and maybe making emotional decisions rather than things based on intellect and what is best. Emotion plays a part in that, and we have to listen to those in ourselves and in other people. And then seeking to solve and not to win or be right. Number 4, specific goals for improvements. No, I'm not coming with a big agenda. I know a laundry list of things that are coming up for the city and are before the council, and I know there's a huge learning curve in the short amount of time between now and elections and the next year. So I think it comes back to that idea of listening first. What's important is that I have plenty of questions. I have plenty of opinions, I have plenty of ideas, but my questions are what's most important so that I really have solid knowledge, the kind of background, you know, the background information knowledge that you've been gaining all this time by going through all of the details of whatever those issues are that are coming up. And open-mindedness is one of my top values in action. If you're familiar with the Penn State happiness, authenticity, values in action, you live into them, happier, better life. That's a piece of what I would hope to bring here to the council and to the city too, is a bit. One of the other top 5 is fun, so really hoping we can inject a lot more smiles like that, and really have a good time as well. An example, so number 5 was the hardest one, an example of participating in a team. And it's hard not because I don't participate in teams, it's because there's been so many for so long over time. And I've probably got to work with Brian more closely than anybody, and so he would know me best in that situation. But I bring all of that openness and listening, fairness, and trying to just do the right thing to every situation that I find myself in. So my question for you, and this is more of a rhetorical one, is that kind of one of the things that we all kind of know and isn't spoken of all the time is the differing of opinions and some of the conflicts that have happened. It's like the elephant in the room, kind of. And if you know the saying, if you do what you've always done, you get what you've always got. And so my question to you is are you open and are you ready and willing to change? And I think I know all of the answers, right? I think that's a big yes from everybody. And I feel very confident, and I always have to temper this with saying, I don't mean to say this in any kind of self-centered way, but I feel very confident that I am the best person in the room to bring that kind of open-mindedness, listening, and altruism, a goal to do the best and to do good. And that's why I'm here, that's why I'm applying for the council, and I appreciate your time. Thanks. Any questions, you are welcome to fire away.
Any other follow-up? Okay. Thanks, Brad. Appreciate it. Mr. Maldonado. Good evening. How are you?
Good evening. Doing well. Again, apologize about my tardiness. Sometimes work just gets in the way.
Work does tend to do that. We all, I think, have been there at one time or another up here, so.
We work on that goal to get to the end, right?
Yeah. So first question for you, Herman, is please tell us a little bit about yourself and what appeals to you about serving as a Canby City Councilor.
Well, I can probably undoubtedly say that I'm the newest to the bunch here. Everybody else seems to have a little bit more of a grasp on council and policies and whatnot. I do not. I'm a very avid member of the community. My wife and I moved here 4 years ago now, 5 years ago. And for me, it's always been home. I come from a small town in Kentucky called Hopkinsville. And you're probably looking at a maximum 20,000 people. For me, that's always been home. The tight knit, the leave your door open, neighbors get to watch your kid if you can't. That's the way it is. We now currently live over off of Fifth Ave. And I've gotten that. My door can stay open and unlocked, and nobody ever comes around, nobody ever messes with anything, and that's the way I want to keep it. On a more personal level, I'm a 40-year-old hardworking American. I have 5 kids total, beautiful wife, and we just have really good values. We care about family and community first.
Great. Councilor Parker, you want to start us off with the list of questions there?
What do you think are the most pressing concerns that the city of Canby has today? And what do you think are ways to try and address those?
The biggest one that I've seen recently is our intercultural. We have I think our Hispanic community is 27% of Canby, and I don't see a whole lot I don't see a whole lot geared towards them. I'm Hispanic myself, I'm Puerto Rican, so for me, I want to see the cultural integration. I want to see the fact that our Spanish and English-speaking neighbors can come together and talk. Believe it or not, that'd be a heck of a cookout, I'll tell you that. That's one heck of a cookout. But I don't see a whole lot. I mean, we have the farmer's market, we have dancing in the streets, we have the music in the Wake Park, but we don't have a lot geared towards our Hispanic community, and that kind of breaks my heart a little bit, especially with it being such a big part of the community. Other than that, I would definitely love to see more. I would love to see more kids functions, something geared more towards kids. Whenever I lived back east, I was very much with the Boys and Girls Club community and the Big Brother program, and that to me is what I felt like helped turn our town into what it was, because we started at the base. We started where it started, and it was with the kids. And then they saw that, they grew up with better values and better morals. And I feel like if we did that here, we could keep our community as what it is now and growing into even something even better. Because as it is, we are growing. The community itself, the town's growing, our population's growing. And in order to keep our morals and our values, we have to start with our kids.
Thank you. Tell us about a situation when you may have not seen eye to eye with a coworker, colleague, or committee member, and how did you resolve that situation?
Anybody that knows me knows I'll butt heads from time to time. Ask my wife.
She's smiling.
But, oh God, is she? At least she's smiling. So I work for maintenance for a property management group. I'm the director of maintenance for all of the downtown Oregon City properties. I oversee 45 employees. You're going to have the one or two that decide to step up and go, well, that's not the way it needs to be done. I'm going to do it this way. The best way that I find a way around it is to plainly hear them out, ask why they think their decisions could be better, and explain if it is better than what my thought process is, fine, let's go ahead and do it. But if it's not, then I have to explain very thoroughly. This is why we do it this way. This is why we have these procedures in place. So that way it gets done right the first time, because we don't want to come back a second time.
Question number 4, do you have some specific goal or improvement that you would like to make in Canby as a result of serving as a city councilor?
Touching back earlier, I want to be a part of a better change for the community. Again, the interracial, our children, I want to be able to make an impact there and then grow everywhere else. Because like I said earlier, I am new to councils and policies. I'm willing to learn, because without learning, you're not growing.
Give us an example, please, of how you've worked or participated as part of a team or a committee.
Whenever I lived back east, I worked with the Humane Society, the Sheriff's Department, directly with rescuing, rehabilitating, and rehoming pit bulls and bully breeds. There was very much a point where, I'll give a case in point, I got called from the Sheriff's Department. They had just raided a drug house, and they had a couple pit bulls on the property that were troublesome, to say the least. But one was deaf, and they didn't know she was deaf. I show up, I have all my bite gear on, I got the dog loop, and I go up to this dog, and immediately a sheriff's officer grabbed me. No, come in. And I stepped to the side with him. I said, listen, that dog has no idea anybody's here except for whenever she looks at you. And in order for us to, she had a bit of aggression to her, and in order for us to be able to get her safely and put her into a kennel, I'm gonna need a lot of you guys' help. It took about 5 of us to actually wrangle this dog in. She's about 200 pounds, big old girl. I was the first one to get bit. Right after me was the gentleman that decided he wanted to grab me and pull me away, and she crawled up my arm and grabbed him. And it took a couple of us just teaming up and really working kind of in unison to be able to get this dog to go in a certain direction, because she was smarter than all of us combined.
Thank you for applying for the position. Do you have any questions for us?
Not really. Not really a question, more of a kind of a blanket statement. Regardless of who you pick in this room, I definitely want to see, I hope that you hear what I had to say out. I hope that you hear that we do need more of a change for the youth and also for our Hispanic community. And I would love to see that in the future.
Great. Thanks, Ron. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Next up is Mr. Marine. Good evening, Art. How are you, sir?
I'm ready.
You're ready. Okay. So tell us about you, Art, and what has brought you here this evening to be on the city council.
Okay. Well, I have a family of 5 kids and a wife that I've been married to this Saturday for 35 years.
Congratulations.
Most of that time we lived in Camby. All of my kids went to the Camby schools, and as a result of that, I feel very loyal to this community. This community has done a lot for me, and I like to give back. I want to give back. And so that's why I'm sitting in this chair today. I feel like I have some experience that would be valuable to the council. I've been a mortgage banker for 38 years. Started in July of 1984. I'm currently a manager for Mortgage Solutions Financial. We're a national mortgage banking company, and I have direct responsibility for 11 employees. All of them I look at as a team, and you know, any kind of organization that you join and you become part of is most successful when they're a team. And so I do a lot of team building with my group, and I feel very good about the direction we've gone. I have a Bachelor of Science from Oregon State University. My major was business administration, and I concentrated in finance. So it was so long ago that I can't remember anything, but it was definitely some skills that'll be helpful in working with city government and budgets.
I guess I'm first this time.
You are.
What do you think are the most pressing concerns in the city of Canby today? And what do you think may be some ways to address those concerns?
Well, I know that the master plan is coming up for revision, and I mean, that's a critical thing. The master plan needs to be in place and studied and be put in a place where it can be revised if it needs to be, but it needs to set the direction for the city. And, you know, I think that in the last cycle, the city did pretty well. I want to compliment this council. You've created policies and programs and systems that create success, and it's gone pretty well, but that master plan is critical. The other thing that I'd like to see in city government is some more inclusion of minorities and you know, the citizens of the community need to be represented. You know, and there's lots of ways to do that. I feel like it would be really beneficial for the city council to create some kind of a task force or you know, some outreach to the underserved citizens of this city. I think I looked at the census for 2020, and I read that 18% of the city was Hispanic. So those numbers can kind of vary depending on how you count the numbers, but regardless, we have a large percentage of minority population, and they need to be represented and talked about.
Thank you. Question number 3 is, tell us about a situation when you may have not seen eye to eye with a coworker, colleague, or committee member, and how did you resolve the situation?
Well, my industry is designed around conflict. Brian's laughing because he knows.
Yes.
Mortgage underwriters their purpose is analyzing risk. So when we put a loan application into our system and it's turned over to a mortgage underwriter to evaluate the risk, there is a automatic conflict there between their objective and the objective of the production staff, which I represent, who they get paid if the transaction closes. So this intrinsic conflict is unavoidable. And as the branch manager for our branch, I end up being the voice for supporting those applications with underwriting. I had a situation recently that was extremely tense. The underwriter was absolutely convinced this transaction shouldn't be approved because the home happened to be located on a private street. So and there's some overlap between the kind of issues that we face in city government as well. The street really should have been dedicated over to the city, but it wasn't. This happened to be in Tigard. And so 6 homeowners accessed their home from that street, and our underwriter didn't want to approve that loan because of it. There wasn't a road maintenance agreement, in fact. So there was no clear-cut answer as to who was going to take care of that street. Well, the resolution was not to fight with this underwriter and argue and create more conflict. The answer was to call him up and talk to him and have a civil conversation about it. And finally, we got to the point, this happened to be a VA loan. I said, why don't you send it to the VA and see what they say? He didn't want to do that at first, but he finally agreed, and VA came back and approved it, and everybody was happy. There was no risk.
Thank you. Do you have some specific goal or improvement you would like to make in Canby as a result of serving as a city councilor?
Well, I would love to see some more integration of the minority population. I mean, I already talked about that, but That's something that I think would be a tremendously valuable thing for our city and would create more input from the constituents of the city. I'd really like to make sure that we have good interactions with the other municipalities in the region. We can learn from them, and you know, in some cases we might want to copy what they're doing. In other cases, we might want to use them as an example of what we don't want to do. But there's a lot to be learned from that, and so I think outreach to the other city councils and the county government are critical. So, you know, everything really revolves around two things: communication and money. And as long as we are being good stewards of the money that we have control over as city councilors, then the real issue is communication amongst each other and going out and outreach into the community.
Thank you for playing art. Can you give us an example of how you worked or participated as part of a team or committee?
You know, probably the happiest I've been living in Canby is when I was serving on various committees and activities that I thought were beneficial. I volunteered a lot at Clackamas County Fair. My wife was the vendor coordinator there for a few years, and so I got volunteered for a lot of things, but it was always a time that made me happy. I served as president of the Trost PTA. Not very many men get the pleasure of being PTA president, but I was there. I was president of the Camby Booster Club for 2 years. That was always enjoyable. Got to meet a lot of people, do a lot of things, and hopefully did some good there. Probably the activity I was most proud of is when the bond came up to build Baker Prairie Middle School. I was chairman of the campaign committee and worked very hard to get that bond passed. And fortunately we did.
And finally, Art, do you have any questions for us?
Well, I see Canby as a dynamic community, and we're going to undoubtedly experience growth, and how we manage that is going to be very important. I'm just curious how the council feels that growth is going to impact the decisions that they make going forward.
It's a very weighted question, Art.
You handled that, Mary.
Oh, thanks, okay. How do you handle growth? It's one of those things I think that we try to take it from this great big huge kickball and try to bring it down to a manageable size and then let staff deal with it. That's what we know. I think for many of us, if not all of us up here, it is something that's probably one of those 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock in the morning, staring at the ceiling going, housing prices being what they are. I mean, we're seeing homes now almost $1 million in Canby. Where do we build, or how do we build to where your 5 kids can, if they want to, move back here and create that lifestyle that you gave them here, right? My oldest is graduating, and I think about, okay, one, is she going to want to come back, and 2, how does she do that, and what are those policies, bless you, those decisions that we're doing here? How does that? How do we do that? And it is a daunting task. We are building houses are selling faster than they can be built right now. You know that, you're in the industry, you see it. And then, as Stephanie brought up, is how do you then match the infrastructure to go with it and keep up with that demand? So I don't know if there is a silver bullet to it. It's constantly moving and changing for us, and what does single family homes look like? What do multifamily homes look like? Where do we put it? How does that work? What's the best place? Well, not next to his neighborhood because they don't want it, but your neighborhood might be okay with it, right? So, or not at all. And then we've got to make the hard decision of plugging it in somewhere because it's needed. So those are those fun decisions that we get to make as this body. And sometimes ideas come to us at 2:00 in the morning. And we can't wait to rattle off an email to each other or to staff to go, hey, I have an idea. So yeah, I've been up in this seat now for 10 years. And for 10 of those 10 years, it's been something that we have talked about ad nauseum about where are we going to go? How do we make this work? So it's a good question. It is a tough one.
Can I add to that, Brian? Yeah, I think that one of the things that I think all of us really learned to its total degree when we were in the seat is that as much as we would all like to manage growth, I think we all share a desire to do that. We are extremely limited by law in what we can and can't do. So there are decisions we end up making all the time that are not our preferred decision, but we are restricted and legally bound to certain development laws that are statewide. But one of the challenges, and I think when we went through the recession in 2008 and beyond, and one of the places that we are trying to catch up is keeping livability on pace with growth, right? Growth never really stopped. It slowed for a while. It slowed way, way down for a while. And then it started happening full speed ahead again. But when we talk about maintaining a small town feel or maintaining that deep sense of community that makes Canby unique, one of the linchpins there is making sure that livability stays on pace with growth and that we're making those investments there, because there are certain decisions we can and can't make about growth, but we can make decisions about whether or not our park system is keeping pace with growth, whether or not we're investing in simple things like, are we planting enough trees in the community so that we have urban shade when we have to cut down all in 15, 20 years because we're cutting down so many trees to build, right? I won't say they're simple decisions, but they're decisions we have more control over than the actual foundational concept of growth, right? And so I think that that's an important part of the growth conversation is that we can't make the decisions we want to make all the time. We can't decide who comes in or doesn't come into the industrial park. We can't say that someone who's following the development code and wants to put in 500 houses, if they're following the code, we can't say no to them. Right? But we can make livability decisions around that make that growth more livable.
Yes, Councilor.
Yeah, and I'll add to that, and I've said it before and I'll say it again, is that no matter what the size of our community is, the small town feel comes from how we treat each other and what's in our hearts. Yeah. And so we could be a community of 100,000 people and still have a small town feel. And I think that that's one of the unique things about Canby that other communities where I've lived and served don't have that. That's something unique that we found, my wife and I, when we came here in 2012, is we came to Canby and there was just, you drive into town and there's just something. There's an aura about the community, and it is that small town feel. It is the way that people treat each other. It's walking into Cutsforth and seeing people that and walking into Fred Meyer. I went the other night and was supposed to get bread, and it took me an hour and a half, because I saw 3 people before I even walked through the door. And that's not because of the number of people that are in our community. That's because of the spirit of the people who live here. Yeah. And so, as Councilor Spoon said, we can't say no to certain places, right? We can't say no to, 500,000 square foot facility that wants to operate 24/7 because they're following our code. But we can model the Canby way to the people who come, because that's what makes us who we are. And so how we handle the growth is by modeling what it means to live the Canby way and to have that community feel.
Yes, Councilor Banks.
I would also add by saying that what gives a small town feel, that small town feel is generation after generation living in the same place. And like Sarah is an example of this, because she grew up in this town. I grew up nearby. when you raise your children and they still live in that same small town, then that's what creates a small town. So how does the council deal with that? We have to consider ourselves with affordability and like as Mr. Clark had said, we have to anticipate in advance. So like we look at things from afar. There has to be a vision. We can't control how many houses are going to go in when the law says they can put that many houses in, but we can anticipate that we're going to need to have more traffic infrastructure so we don't get bogged down in our own town. And that's hard. I think that's a real challenge. That's what the staying up at 1 o'clock in the morning is. That and the fact that we just got out of a city council meeting.
I think that's happened twice maybe?
There was a couple midnight ones in a row there.
No.
There was a period in time.
It was yeah. No, that was a great question, Art. I appreciate it. What other questions do you have for us? Anything?
I think that'll do it. I really appreciate the answers, and I'm especially happy to hear that all the answers are things that I completely agree with. So my goal is to create a city here where I can get my kids to move back.
Yeah.
That's ideally what I'd like to have.
You want them to move back, but not necessarily back under the same roof.
Well,
Yeah, different house. Yeah.
that goes without saying.
Same town.
Any follow-up questions for Mr. Marine at all? No? Art, thank you very much. Appreciate
Thank
it. Next up is Mr. Patton. Good evening, Jason.
Good evening, members of council, mayor, and city staff. My name is Jason Patton. I live at 1040 North Birch Street here in Canby. I did get the questions, and per usual, I'm going to be a little unorthodox and kind of go in a different direction, so you please bear with me. Over the last 11 years, I've applied for anywhere from 5 to 6 openings on the city council and have been denied every time. So I figured, what's the risk tonight? As far as the history of service, I've said this before. Ever since I was a little kid, when my parents would take me and my sister to their motorcycle rallies to sell raffle tickets and pick litter off the roads, is when my interest in serving the community I'm a part of got started. I was very involved in high school, technically middle school and high school. It was all pre-K through 12 in one building. I just have to say the small town feel thing always cracks me up because I grew up in a community of about 1,000 people, and we were the middle-sized city. The largest city was like the size of Camby, so it's always interesting to hear the small town feel portion of things. When I went to college, I was deeply involved there, finished up there as the student government president and the specialized statutory and ag and tech school rep for the SUNY Student Assembly. And then when I moved to Canby, within a couple of months of moving here, I came here to City Hall and asked how I could get involved. And I was originally appointed to the Urban Renewal Advisory Board, which was dissolved about a year after that. And since then, I have served on a variety of different committees and focus groups. I've been on City Council. I was elected to city council for a few years before stepping down, which I regret to this day. And then currently I serve on the budget committee and the planning commission, but I've also been involved in the Oregon Association of Nurseries Greenhouse chapter, and some people might recognize me from selling pies for the Methodist Church at the Clackamas County Fair when they did that. So I have a history of serving the community that I am a part of. So now I'm just going to give you some points of interest as far as they go for me. So for this position, I've applied. This will be the third time I've applied for this position. And just as a reminder, I actually ran for this position in November of 2020, where I received 4,262 votes for the position. I was 114 votes behind Jordan Tibbles, who was ultimately elected, and then 8 votes from James Heeb, who is now serving as a county representative. So of all the folks here, I actually had skin in the game back in the day. when I was denied getting onto the position the last time I applied, it was made clear that I needed to embrace the Planning Commission, and so I did, and where I have become chair. And I have been working with Don in the planning department, as well as my fellow planning commissioners, to drive some real change in updating the codes. One of the things that we have a huge problem with, and you have touched on this, is that livability is oftentimes driven through the codes of the city, and considering they have not been updated since 1985 is insane. And so we are working hard on the Planning Commission to remedy that. This might sound puzzling, but I am not going to be stepping down from Planning Commission. Regardless of what happens tonight, I will not be stepping down as chair or as a member of the Planning Commission. Another thing I will just mention is that in reading through the city charter and doing research through the state, there is nothing that says that a planning commissioner or vice versa, a city councilor cannot serve on the other board. So technically, there is nothing to preclude me from being a member of the city council and still be on the planning commission. Now, you may hear from the city attorney, Mr. Lindsay, that there could be a conflict of interest there because the planning commission is essentially a commission or board of the city council. But I would say that a number of the issues that come across your dais are not all planning commission issues. They are ones that never are dealt with by planning commission. And so I feel that if I was to recuse myself, or in the case of an application coming across, I would be happy to even step off the dais to make sure that there is no conflict of interest of anything to do with planning commission. So with that, here is my Hail Mary pass, okay? So there is 8 months left on this position. 8 months to try and get someone who is not familiar with what's going on in the city up to speed to keep your goals on track, the TSP, the housing needs analysis, the city budget. All of these things are going to require some spin up time for whoever is chosen. What I would say is, and I think I missed this one. I do not plan on running for this position in November. As you know, I really would like to be on city council. I really, really want to serve this community as a council member. But I feel that the work to be done on the planning commission is equally as important to this community. And I am willing to sacrifice my desire to be on city council in order to serve this community as a strong and open-minded individual on that planning commission. So if you were to appoint me to this position, I would be happy to serve for the 8 months as an interim. I would help you, being someone who is familiar with the activities of the city, what city councilors can and cannot do, keep the ball moving and keep things on track. In November, the individuals that have applied tonight and anybody else in the community are more than welcome to run for the position as part of the election. And I hope that any one of them is elected and gets on. So that's pretty much it. If it was to happen, I would obviously not be able to be on the budget committee because that is a council serves as members of the budget committee. I am currently on the budget committee. And so if after the 8 months there was an open position on the budget committee, I would happily apply for that and hope to be reappointed to that committee. So with that is my crazy harebrained plan. If you have any questions, I'd be more than happy to answer them.
Thank you, Jason. I appreciate it. Does anyone on the council here have a question for Mr. Patton? Do anybody want to ask the questions that are on the sheet, or are we content with?
I think for the fairness of all the applicants, that maybe some of these questions might not have been answered, so we should look to see if any of these haven't been answered.
Well, I could tell you, I've told you a bit about myself. What do you think some of the most pressing concerns are for the city today? Many of the ones that have been mentioned today as far as planning, trying to keep an eye on growth, working with some of the other members of the community to get them involved, I think are all important. Whether that could be done in 8 months would be difficult. Tell us about a situation you've not seen eye to eye to a coworker. I will go so far as to say that not necessarily a coworker, but here on actually just recently on Planning Commission, we had a member who, it was laid out that there was some questions about the food carts. And one of the questions was, should there be a set number of food carts that designates a food cart pod? I made it very clear that we would be discussing that as part of the discussion rather than in the part of, asking city staff for more information. And one of the members of the Planning Commission began to ask questions about the number of food carts. And I said, look, I understand that you want to ask these questions, but we've identified that there's a place in the time of the budget of the agenda for this, and that's when we're gonna do it. There was a little bit of tension after that. We worked it out, and everything was fine moving forward. I've told you what my goals are as far as keeping the ball on track. I don't have any specific goals, and I've given you plenty of examples of me being a member of a team. So there you go.
Great. Thank you, Jason.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Did you have any questions for us?
Oh, no. I've had a lot of my questions answered.
Next up is Mr. Scott Sassy.
Good evening, council, mayor, and city staff. I kind of wish my last name was Lassie now, because that's pretty hard to follow, so kudos, Jason. Scott Sassy, 1440 South Hy-Vee. Married to my wife, Teresa, 3 children, 2 which have worked for the city, seasonal. I just wanted to point out that this is the first city administrator that I have not done his yard for, since I have a landscape maintenance company. And so I'm still waiting for that phone call, but we'll get to that later. My wife and I, like I say, I have a landscape business, and my wife owns Puddin' River Chocolates. Both kids, like I say, Garrett's the last one in college. Emily and Garrett have both worked for the city seasonal. I think it's good for them. Why I'm running. For years, I've kind of wanted to throw my name in there. I kind of went in to wait till the kids were out of college. I know the time you guys put in. I've seen your pamphlets. It's incredible. It makes you want to go back to the good old days when you were here for an hour and a half, 2 hours, and you could go home. I watch you guys on TV all the time. I don't know if that's a blessing or a curse.
Give you autographs later.
I think overall you do a great job. We got to get away from the side thing. You guys are here to do what's best for Canby. I never want to be considered on a side. I just want to do the best, what the people want. We talk about experience. I'm in every subdivision in town. I drive every street in town. I hear from people, you can't believe what I hear. What I should be is ambassador for Canby, because I tell them when a council meeting's up, what's coming down the road, what a development is. I feel for our development. I think growth is huge right now. I think our codes are a mess. I agree with Jason on that. They have been for years. I think that kills us. I hate to see these apartments go in these flag lots in these divisions where they were older homes. But what are you going to do when your hands are tied? So I guess that answers the first one. You guys can bring it on and ask me.
You're up first this time.
I get a start on question number 2. What do you think are the most pressing concerns in the city of Canby today, besides that Scott doesn't use you for landscaping? And what do you think may be some ways to address these concerns?
Growth is big. you can't stop it. You got to regulate it. Like I say, I think the codes would help. I've seen the planning commission where they don't want a development to come in, but their hands are tied. So they had to approve it because they couldn't do anything about it. Economic development is huge. We've got to keep that going. The downtown's getting better. The industrial park's getting better. We still got to get a road out to 99E. That should have been done before, that should be done before Amazon comes in, as far as I'm concerned. We're making money for the city. Public Works needs more people. City Parks needs more people, employees. We get a new cop every 6 months. Let's get some people that work in this town and get this town going. The saddest thing I saw the other day, I don't know if you guys know, when you come up the bridge in Canby, the little triangle park, used to have a sign there, the garden spot. Have you seen how bad that looks? It's terrible. And then I was just about ready to go down on a weekend and just kind of mow it and clean it up a little bit. And the high school landscape team went over there and cleaned it up. And I thought, you know, thank you. But that's a sign, that's one sign coming into our town. Terrible. So workers, we've got the money. Let's hire some more people, get it in the budget, what you need to do.
Amendment 3?
Number 3.
Thank you. Tell us about a situation when you may or may not have seen eye to eye with a coworker, colleague, or committee member, and how did you resolve that
Well,
situation?
two quick. One was easy. I don't have much conflict. My kids have been my own employees, so that goes pretty easy. One gentleman on Country Club years ago thought I stole his rake. And I said, you've got to be kidding me. Come on, I've got 10 rakes in my trailer. Well, one of them are mine. I said, I'll tell you what. If you can't find that rake by the time I'm here next week, you get a month free. So it went through there. I show up the next week, he comes out, head down. I said, did you find your rake? Yeah, it was in my wheelbarrow, buried underneath all this yard debris stuff that I'd cleaned out a bed for. And I said, good, double the pay. He says, no, I'm really sorry. I said, it's fine, but it'll be okay. The second one was I have been on the baseball board for years, and we have a system, which I always wanted to get it changed. It's a point system. Throw the ball, hit the ball, run the bases, fielding, and catching or pitching. And you get points for every division. Every year, the same kids would be 1 through 8. And then from 8 to 15 would be these poor ragamuffins. And I said, how come this kid got so low? I saw this kid and he was fantastic. Well, that's just the way it is. And I said, that's not right and you know it. So I'll give you a classic example. My son's group and his there's a 3-year gap around that age. For every year that they were out for baseball, they were anywhere from 10 to 13 on that list. When Garrett was a senior, you know how many of those kids were left? 2. Garrett and another kid that never placed. The only 2 left. And both of those went to play ball at George Fox. So that was a big deal. We finally got that kind of, but it's still a little bit that way, but not too bad. So.
Do you have any specific goals or improvements you would like to make in Canby as a result of serving on city council?
Well, as you know, I'm on the Parks and Rec board, so I don't know if I'm elected, can I keep on that, or do I have to quit that to be on the council? I'm just joking.
If we just skip to question 6, I will answer it. You guys have a policy and guidelines that you put out in 2018, and it talks about when you're a liaison to the board, you're not supposed to actually overtly get in the activities of each board. I would say serving on a board would violate that rule.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I figured it probably would, but I really enjoy the Parks and Rec board, but I really want to see this master plan come together. I think it has taken way too long for this thing to come to fruition, way too long. By the time we get these things going, we're going to have a meeting together. It'll be June. We've already lost the summer thing, so you might as well put everything off till fall or next spring. So that's my big thing is that, and I think that's the main thing right now is just getting that master plan done.
And finally, Scott, can you give us an example of how you've worked or participated as a part of a team or a committee?
Well, like I say, I've been on the baseball board for years. I did the softball and baseball fields forever. I think I finally quit probably 2 years ago. I said, I'm done moving dirt. So, and then I've been on baseball, softball. I used to help with the Kiwanis bark nut sale. I loaded all their bark for them. I've helped with Lions Club, Kiwanis. I'm on Parks and Rec Board now. We're always doing something to help the community.
Okay, do you have any other questions besides the Parks and Rec question that Joe already answered? Do you have any other questions?
I think that's it. I just, whoever's elected, and I've told Councilor Parker this years ago, I said, when you guys are up there, and I do it when I come, I love coming and talk to you because it's the only time I'm called Mr. Sassy. I tell everybody, and I do it when I go home after your first meeting or every once in a while, watch yourself on TV. It's really helpful. You just might pick up something that may be a little more professional or, a little more into it, and that's just a small piece. Just go home and watch yourself on TV, because it is different. That's it.
Thank you, Mr. Sassy.
Thanks.
Last but not least, Mr. Veek. Evening, sir. How are you?
Good, it's tough to be the last one, right? It can be.
Mr. Bangs, would you like to ask the first question there, sir?
Oh,
I would. Please tell us a little bit about yourself and what appeals to you about serving on city council.
So my name's Curtis Veek. I was born and raised in Malino, Oregon, which is now a hamlet. What does that mean? I joined the military at a young age, which took me up to Whidbey Island, Washington for my career up there. But of course, I traveled around the world and the country quite a bit during that time. After being up there for about 25 years, I decided I was going to set my roots down and want to return back to the area that I grew up in. This area has much more of a appeal for me for traveling, homes, and things of that nature than Malino at this time. So I'm going to set up my roots in Canby for a bit, and I want to be part of the council to continue to serve the community that I'm going to be a part of.
Thank you for applying, Curtis. What do you think are the most pressing concerns in the city of Canby today, and what do you think may be some ways to address these concerns?
This was mentioned quite a few times, and I'll just use this word, infrastructure. But that encompasses quite a few things, and there were a lot of good points, whether it be transportation, roads, logistics. We have a lot of events in this town. It appears, from my point of view, to be handled very well. But it's also growth. There was talk about the Amazon facilities or even more out there where the industrial complex is. That brings in more families, brings in more vehicles, brings in a lot of things. So infrastructure, in my opinion, kind of covers that in general, that terminology, and it branches off quite a bit from there. To better address which ones, reaching out to the community and finding the community's needs. What do they have to say? What are we getting at? Whether it's council meetings, I don't know, people probably email, letters, just various forms of communication to find out their needs, their desires, or even just what you see on a daily basis. One of the things I didn't add on about myself, I like to do a lot of fitness stuff outside, ride my bike, run, walk. But when you do that around a city, you kind of see a lot of things. You pay a lot more attention, in my opinion, when you're running or walking so you don't get hit. But you also see a lot of, not really concerns, but just a lot of traffic flow or just buildings, parks, and things of that nature.
Can you tell us about a situation when you may not have seen eye to eye with a coworker, colleague, or a committee member, and how you resolve that situation?
It's a difficult one that with coworkers that generally have a very easygoing, pretty good relationship. Sometimes with supervisors or bosses, that's a little bit different. In the military, there's not much of a two-way conversation. You follow orders. That's kind of how it is. Of course, there's always time for input. The most important thing is to listen, not just to the words that you're hearing, but the voice, the tone, the body language. Communicate and find a good compromise. A lot of us, we have common ground somewhere. Finding that common ground so you can, reach a compromise somewhere. And it was said before, this is why it's so hard to be last, never take it personal. That can be very hard sometimes because you feel like, you're personally attacking me all the time. No, we just are not seeing eye to eye in certain areas, but we've got to see the ones that we do.
Do you have some specific goal or improvement you'd like to make in Canby as a result of serving as a city councilor?
One of the things that I did during the time up in Washington, Woodby on Washington, was I worked for the North Woodby Park and Rec Department, which was, the majority of it was a swimming pool, much like the swimming pool that you have here, Canby Pool, but also included some parks and a lot of different areas in that. I have been to the pool a few times. It looks very similar to what I saw in the 80s when I did swim lessons there as a kid, which is great to have, but I'd like to see if improvements there, or maybe expanding what kind of programs do they have to offer. It's going to kind of tie into the team committee question, if I can kind of segue into that one, if you don't come back to it. One of the things I was appointed to up there by working at North Woodby Park and Rec was myself and one other person, was a team to go out and communicate with the community, because we relied on a property tax levy, a bond to be passed for the majority of the funds for that pool. Well, a lot of folks didn't realize that we were more than just a swimming pool. So I don't swim, why am I going to vote for something if I don't use? So we worked to get communication lines brought up with my team to find out what did the community want. And from that, we were able to expand our programs to include more things than just the water. And it grew into charity runs. I don't want to go into a lot, but it grew into a lot of different activities that were provided to the community. And we passed our levy.
My last name starts with a V as well, so I understand going last often. So give us an example of how you have worked or participated as a part of a team or a committee.
I'll kind of segue back to a little bit to what I was talking about with forming the team to get the property tax levy passed up in North Woodby Park and Rec. Was to reach out to the community, find out what their needs were that were beyond the pool. What we found out, if I wanted to get into a little more deeper, is that families were looking for activities for children that were between the ages of 3 and 5. Because a lot of youth activities don't start till 5. And I was also a preschool teacher for a while up there, and so I could see that as well. And so we provided outdoor activities such as fitness clubs, things that were catered to their age groups, 3 to 5, and then we could do an older group that was a little bit later. Then we also did a youth fair where local community members that might have tumbling, kind of like a summer fair, to bring information to families of activities for children to do in the summertime in the surrounding areas, whether it be sports, like I said, tumbling, art, it could be stables. There were a lot of different opportunities that were available.
You already answered the question. That's your turn.
I did start. You did start. Okay, thank you. Okay. Any further questions for us at all?
No, this time just feedback. This is my first time getting into anything of government politics as a soldier. I don't think it's really our place, to be involved in politics. We're there to kind of serve the people. But this is my first time getting into that idea. So getting some feedback. I also saw there were various other areas you can get involved in locally with a lot of commission boards and stuff like that too. So getting some feedback about this and the process would be great.
Okay. I think that we can arrange that here after we get through our dialogue and hear whatnot. Definitely, I can reach out, Curtis, and talk further for sure.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, sir.
we also do have some openings on various committees, so anybody who shows an interest tonight could serve in various ways on other committees.
Thank you for helping me segue, Joe. I appreciate it. But yes, Curtis definitely would follow up with you for sure. So I'll reach out afterwards and we can talk further for sure.
Brian?
But yes, as RFC attorney said, those of you that are not selected this evening, please, we do have a long list of openings on various committees. As Mr. Padden was stating, I think we have 2 positions on our budget committee. One. We have 1 on our budget committee. And so I know Canby Area Transit has some openings. I think we've got, so definitely there's opportunities to be involved.
And we have your phone numbers and email addresses.
Yes. We will not be afraid to use that. So yeah, but thank you, Chris, for applying and throwing your hat in there. Anything else, any other questions for us at all?
No.
Brian, are you ready for a motion?
Can we take a recess? I thought we were going to talk about.
Well, we can't talk during a recess.
No. And I think she was just talking about recess to
Can we
be
just
able
take
to.
a quick recess?
I think we're gonna
Come
just
back and
take a
deliberate?
quick recess and then we'll have a.
Gotcha.
We'll have our conversation. So sit tight and we'll be back here in 5 minutes.
5 minutes is good.
Thank you, Chris. Thanks. All right, Camby, thank you for letting us take a quick break. We've concluded with the interviews, and I want to...
Recording in progress.
So, thank you, Canby, for joining us back in. We've concluded the interviews, and I want to thank all of those that have interviewed tonight. I really do appreciate it. It's always an interesting process. I think Jason and Brad were the only ones from the last time we did this, and it has been an unusual stretch for us. We've had this process now, I think, this is the third time in...
That this 4-year seat is.
Yeah, that this 4-year seat's been up. So, I don't know if...
People keep leaving town.
Yeah, that's been a lot of it. There's been a lot of movement out of town and things like that. So, but thank you for your answers and being prepared. As you all kind of hit on a lot of the pieces that we deal with as a city council. And there's a lot of things that are small but very heavy pieces that are behind each and every one of those issues that we deal with. You know, we talked earlier at the beginning that yes, it's, 2 Wednesdays a month, but there's a lot of prep work and there is a lot of committee meetings that we attend, and this job, because it is a job. You are, we're interviewing you, but the time may come, you may ask the citizens of Canby to have you sit up here and fill this job. And it's as much as you want to put into it. You can, you could probably get up here and call it in every meeting. I don't recommend that. There's a lot to this job. There's a lot of things that go on at the county level. You can get yourself engrossed in that. There's a lot of things that go on the regional level. You can get, so it goes on and on and on, and you can make this be a 40-hour-a-week activity if you wanted it to be. There's that much going on in Canby, and that's how it's changed. So please find a way to be involved. There was a lot of things said here about community building and continuing to reach out to areas of our community that are not engaged. I totally agree. That is we've seen that improve, but it's not where I think it could be. We do have a lot of challenges from a growth standpoint, and those are going to continue. We're not going to get smaller, and it's going to get thicker and denser. It's just how well we want to play that out. And do we want to do it? Do we want it imposed upon us, or do we want to be the ones that lead that? And I think this council has been, and I think will be, constantly fighting to be the leaders of it and not to be imposed upon. So just things to keep in mind. Council, in the years past, we've done kind of a 1-2 for conversation. Do we want to do like a first and second preference? Do we want to have that conversation, or is there?
Well, I'm prepared to make a motion if you'll accept it.
Well, I can't not accept that, I don't think.
Yeah, I think conversation at first and second kind of gives us an idea of where everybody's at. If there's a common denominator, we have 7 people before us.
I don't think that deliberation is necessary. I think we have a lot of good candidates. I don't think we always need to rank them. I mean, it's an uncomfortable conversation. If they want feedback, we can talk during motion deliberation about why we like someone or what we are looking for or valuable traits of other candidates, but.
And that was where I was going. Brian, I think I mentioned that last time of it being a binary decision instead of saying, we didn't pick you, this is the reason why. So if you will accept a motion, I would like to move to appoint Art Marine to the Canby City Council.
I'll second that.
Okay. Motion has been made by Councilor Parker to appoint Art Marine to fill the council vacancy of David Bajoran for a term ending the beginning of the year following the next general biennial election, which is December 31st, 2022. Discussion. Yes, Councilor Varwig.
Well, first of all, I think it's important to say thank you to every single person who applied for this position. I think that it shows your character for wanting to step up and serve our community, and it would be an honor to serve with any of you on this dais. You know, I consider the conversations that we've had over the years, you know, about the makeup of this council. And some of the comments that have been made in the past have been, we wish that our Hispanic community was represented. Tonight we have a person from our Hispanic community who has applied and would like to represent the community. It wasn't that long ago that we had some stuff come up. And I feel like we're back in that position again of a decision that has been predetermined. That's just my feeling on things. To sit here and say for years and years and years, we hope our Hispanic community is represented. We really would love somebody from our Hispanic community to step up to the plate and represent our Hispanic community. And then to have somebody from our Hispanic community step up to the plate and say, I would like to serve. And one of my main things is to involve our Hispanic community. And then to say, we want somebody else, seems very hypocritical to me. Something that drives me absolutely insane is hypocrisy. I don't know you, Mr. Marine. I think from what I've learned, if this is the way things go, I will enjoy serving with you. I am incredibly disappointed that before it seems our last person was even done taking his last breath from his comment, we are ready to make a motion. It seems like a predetermined decision, and that disappoints me.
Yeah. I just saw your hand go up.
Yes, thank you. I don't have any observations regarding Councilor Varwig's comments. I want to say that I was prepared to move forward with 5 of you. I really was impressed with the quality of the applicants tonight. I've had several of your children in class. I think one of the marks of a man or a woman is how good your kids are, and I'm really impressed with your kids. I'll say, as full disclosure, when the opening first came up, I called Jason Padden and encouraged him to apply. And then he said he wouldn't. And then I called Brad Clark. I think both of you would make excellent city councilors, and then I felt that way about several of the others. I will support this motion. Art is the only person in the room I've ever actually voted for. So, you know, I'll support it, but I want to encourage the rest of you to continue to show involvement in our community. Like, I'm just impressed with the quality of all of our applicants tonight. So that's all I wanted to say.
Thank you. Councilor Spoon.
Yeah, I want to echo what Councilor Banks said. I think that, you know, we have a great pool of candidates here. There's things I like about every one of you. Jason, if you were willing to not be on both boards, I would have tried to not, you know, I would be happy to have you here. But since you've made it clear you don't want to step down from Planning Commission, that's a struggle for me. I think Brad, I liked you last time. I like you this time. I like all the candidates here for different reasons. I do want to address Councilor Varwig's comments because I feel like there was a couple of accusations there, which, you know, I think deserve to be addressed. Sean, you will not find a bigger advocate for diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging on this council than me. I work in that professionally. It's what I do. I think a couple of things. 2 years ago, I started advocating for a diversity, equity, and inclusion task force, and you haven't reached out to me to support that or help me make that happen. If that's something that you're saying that you really value, I would be happy to work with you to make that happen. If you want to have a meaningful conversation about diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging, you have my phone number. I'll sit down with you anytime and talk about it. I think that what we're risking here with some of the comments you made are when race is the only factor in a decision, we get into tokenism, and that is also harmful to diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging. And I think that Mr. Maldonado is a fantastic candidate. I hope he serves on a board. If he wants to run for office, I would love to sit down with him and see if he's a candidate I would want to support. In this case, I'm looking for someone that has more more experience in community work, and I think that a lot of other candidates have more of that experience. Mr. Maldonado, if you want to come with me on May 21st, Bridging Cultures every other week through the summer has a cookout, just like you were saying you would love to see. We can do more outreach to help them get that out, but I would happy to go there with you and introduce you to, it's really a Bridging Cultures event and it's fantastic. But I think that accusations of hypocrisy and whatnot, that's not helpful to diversity, equity, inclusion. And so that's, if you want to sit down and have a meaningful conversation about it, if you want to work with me on getting this council to have a diversity, equity, and inclusion task force that puts an equity lens on all the decisions we make, I would welcome your help, because I've been kind of driving that train alone for a couple of years, and I could use someone like you to work with me on it. So I welcome that. In this case, Mr. Marine is the person who I liked what he had to say about his work working with the Trost PTA. I like some of the community work he's done in terms of working to get the bond passed for Baker Prairie at a time when this community desperately needed it. I think his management and finance experience is going to be incredibly valuable as we manage a complex multi-million-dollar budget. And to me, even though we have a lot of great candidates, to me, he's the candidate that most matches those policy needs that we have, and he has some experience working with policy. So that's why he's my preferred candidate this evening.
Mr. Mayor.
Yes, Councilor Parker.
Yeah, the reason I selected Art Marine is because of his community engagement, his participation of working at what I call the retail level of community roots. I regretfully have to make a response to Councillor Varwig. I thought we had an agreement that we weren't going to call each other names. For you to call me a hypocrite, especially on something like this, when I was on the founding group for Bridging Cultures and have come to you guys every year asking you to participate in it, and for you not to recognize it and say, no, I have no creds when it comes to trying advancing the voices of the unheard. And then again, we're back to this boogeyman of if things aren't going my way, then somebody must have figured this out. You said that before, you couldn't come up with any evidence. You're making accusations again tonight without any evidence. I thought we had come to a gentleman's agreement that we weren't going to be doing this.
And Mr. Mayor, I want a point of order on that. We had a discussion about our policies and procedures manual, and that when there were, that it says we all agreed that we would not call each other out with accusations of intent. And when that happens, that person would be removed from the meeting. I respect if you're not going to make that decision tonight, but I just want to point out that there is a policy and procedure that we will not accuse each other of malintent, and that we've had multiple discussions about moving that direction as a council for the good of the city. And so I'm not asking you to remove Councilor Varwig. I think it's important that he stays in this conversation, but we do have a policies and procedures that was not followed.
I'd like to call the question, please.
I have nothing to offer. This is the exact conversation I believe Councilor Parker wanted to avoid by not doing first and second preference, so I have no comments on this conversation.
Okay. So there's a motion on the table. It's been first and seconded. All those in favor of having Art Marine fill the vacant council seat to fulfill this year, ending on the 31st of this year, respond with an aye.
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 Those opposed?
Nay.
There's no way to abstain, so Mr. Marine, congratulations. You are our new city councilor, and we'll be swearing you in very quickly, so.
Next week?
Yes, next week. So thank you very much, sir, for interviewing, and congratulations.
I look forward to serving.
All right. There is no other business on tonight's meeting. I'll take a motion to adjourn.
I move to adjourn.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded to adjourn. All those in favor of adjourning for the evening?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? All right, we're done. Thank you, Camby. Have a great evening.
Recording stopped.